Hey there, I'm Alex Kluge from Toronto Home Experts, and I'm here to dive into the October 2020 real estate market update. So if anyone watched our market video from September, is not entirely going to be surprised with some of the content that we're coming up with here today. The market is continuing to be red hot, and it's like that in most pockets of the GTA. But really what I want to talk to you about is what's behind those numbers. So what are we really seeing? So yes, the numbers that we're seeing are painting a very rosy picture. And yeah, that's the case in a lot of pockets. But I really want to dive in and talk about some of the micro markets and how they're impacting you as if you're looking to buy or sell. So sales activity. So sales volume is one of the metrics that a lot of the newspapers or media outlets like to focus on and really sort of help paint a picture whether it's hot or cold. So not entirely surprising that we've got like a crazy month activity wise for sales. We were up 25% from where we were October 2019. And this would actually be the busiest October on record. So we're up over 10,500 sales, which is unbelievable. And actually what's even more unbelievable is that sales volume from January 2020 to October 2020 has already surpassed sales volume for 2019. If you were to ask me in March or April if that would have been the case, I would have said no way. So shocking to see that we've actually exceeded sales volume from last year, but great to see that the market has really bounced back. Now, it doesn't tell the whole picture, but it does show that there's been a lot of transactions. And if anyone watched our videos from last month and the month before, it's really signaling a shift in lifestyle. So that's number one. I think people are now looking for perhaps a little bit more space if they're working from home, or a place that might have a home office or a den area where they could work. And so that's something that I find that's been really common in a lot of our clients looking for that extra space. But number two is mortgage rates are so low right now that a lot of people are saying, I gotta jump into the market, or I should really upsize and take advantage of these ultra low rates. Like we're having clients getting mortgages, 5-year mortgage fixed rate at 1.79. Unbelievable. It's so low. Like if you were to ask me a year ago if rates would ever go lower than they were, I would probably have said no, likely not. They're at historical lows already. But now, because of what's been happening in globally with interest rates and also the economy in general, I think rates are here to stay for at least the next little while. So, we're seeing a lot of buyers jump in as a result. Okay, so let's jump into active listings. Like, if sales activity is up, we're going to assume that, sales activity and active listings is also up as well. So not entirely surprising that we're up also 12% from where we were last year. So, if we're seeing that type of active listings increase by 25% and sales volume increased by 25% and active listings increasing by 12%. What is that saying? That's saying that there's a shortage in the marketplace. So that's going to drive up price, which we're going to get to that slide in a moment. So new listings, again, another metric that we like to see what's happening in terms of new inventory, and it's up a whopping 36%. Now, there's a little bit of a dichotomy, if you will, of what's happening, in the market. So condos is representing a pretty big surge in new listings. So we're going to talk about that just in a little bit moment. But, the detached, freehold, semi-detached townhouse market is also up, but not as much as the condo market. So there's been a surge of new condo completions this year. And because of the rental market, because of the softening that we've seen in the rental market, landlords or prospective landlords or investors are choosing to sell their units instead of holding on to them. So that's, produced a little bit of an increase in that new listing inventory. But also, we're seeing that a lot of upsizers. So a lot of people are deciding to move out of condos and buy their first detached or buy their first semi-detached, whatever you may think. But they're looking to increase their square footage is what we're seeing a lot of. So, those tiny, less than 500 square foot condos are a really tough sell right now. Not a lot of people are looking to buy those. So that's the segment that's been impacted the most throughout this pandemic. Larger condos, less so. If you're looking at a larger 2-bedroom or 1+ dens, those are typically selling a little bit more rapidly. And actually, what's interesting about condos is we've noticed a distinction between sales of low-rise versus high-rise condos. So if you're in a low-rise boutique building, i.e., less than kind of 6 stories, those are still selling very well, and months of inventory is, I would say, pretty consistent with where we were last year, maybe slightly uptick. But the high-rise condos, like anything over 36 stories, is really taking a lot longer to sell. And there's less appetite from buyers to wanting to buy those high-rises. And, so when you're looking at high-rise versus boutique, part of that is location. There's fewer of those like quote-unquote boutique low-rise buildings in downtown Toronto. I mean, there are obviously a few exceptions. There are some in King West, but primarily those boutique buildings are in the outskirts of downtown, like Leslieville, Riverdale, that pocket, Bloor West, High Park also has a number of those types of buildings. So that's also locational, but we're seeing less demand for the high-rise inventory for condos. Average price. So this is, again, the media is going to play a huge role in sort of depicting the story they want to tell with what's happening in the market. But average prices are now $968,000 for all property types in Toronto. So that's up 13%. So does that mean that prices are up, or average values are up 13.7% in GTA? No, it doesn't. It's not an accurate reflection, as you know, because we're taking a basket of average sales and we're grouping those for the month, and then we're dividing them by the number of sales, and that's how you get our average price. So it's not a great metric to look at. But what's interesting is actually if you dive into the numbers, and again, you really want to compare apples to apples. So the freehold market, detached, semi-detached, that's really a very buoyant market right now. I would say average, if you're looking at HPI, so house price index, we're looking at probably an average increase around 8%, depending on which pockets you are in Toronto. Greater Toronto, like Durham region right now, is really, really active, and prices are certainly up a lot more than 8%. But Midtown, Markham, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, Mississauga, those areas are also up for freeholds. There's still that demand to, move into that larger space, as I mentioned earlier. Now, for condos, there's been a lot of media talk about like the condo market's crashing, it's tanking, and prices are going down. Like the condo market's terrible, and that's not really true. I mean, yes, the condo market is softer, no question. There's less appetite. Typically, condo purchasers, investors, people who are going to rent out their units, make up roughly half of all condo purchasers in an average year. And now we're not seeing really a lot of investors buy. It's typically end users. So that's why, you're seeing fewer condo sales, because really a lot of investors are taking it out of the mix. So it's really just end users that are buying condos. But when you look at the average price of a condo right now in the 416 specifically, it's $668,000. So $668,000 is the average price of a condo for the month of October. Now, if you compare that to where we were a year ago, the average price was $662,000. So it's about the same. So prices have not dropped from a year ago. They've essentially remained flat, which was what we've been saying. But a lot of media outlets are talking about and they're comparing to February 2020, which is not a great moment in time to compare to, because that's prices from February 2020 for condos is down 7%. So that's, there was a huge run up really from January, February, which was not sustainable. Like we were actually cautioning our clients not to buy in February because the market was just so crazy. It was unbelievable. One of the craziest months of real estate that we've witnessed was February, and condos were just selling at, honestly, they were ridiculous prices. So it's not really a surprise that prices are down 7% from February. But, really the real picture is, how does it compare to a year ago? Like, where are prices? They're flat. So, the sky isn't falling, the prices aren't dropping that significantly. Yes, do we feel that prices are probably going to level out at some point for condos? Yeah, we don't know when that is, but we feel that as we sort of get through, perhaps the winter months, we might see, and perhaps there's a vaccine that's introduced for COVID-19, then I think we're going to start to see a resurgence of demand for condos, and especially as businesses reopen. And the downtown core, a lot of the restaurants are now only doing takeout. A lot of offices are working remotely. Once we see those starting to open, we have the feeling that condo downtown is going to be very much in demand as life normalizes post pandemic. Obviously things are going to change. Perhaps working from home is going to be more common than it is today, but we don't know. But we feel that the condo market, isn't as negatively impacted possibly as the media is portraying it to be. So anyways, that's our 2 cents on the condo market, because I know we get a lot of questions on that. So I wanted to make sure that we are addressing that in this video, because it's obviously a hot topic today. So days on market, that I love this metric when we're talking about health of the real estate market. And no surprise, it's down. Sorry, we're actually not talking about months of inventory. We're talking about days on market. Months of inventory is coming up. But so days on market, unsurprisingly, down 26%, 17 days on market, which is really, really low. And last year we had a really good real estate market. So, the demand for active listings, we're seeing that with sales volume, is really pushing down that days on market. So again, not surprising that we're down to this level, which again is pretty close to historical lows. Not quite, but we're getting there. Now, months of inventory. We're down to 1.7 months of inventory for all of GTA for the month of October. Crazy. That is ultra, ultra low. And, comparing it to October 2019, which was also a very, very good market, that was at 2.2. So, anytime you're kind of below that 2.2 range, like we are now with 1.7, it's really a seller's market. And it is. And that is really skewed in the freehold market. You'll see, if you really divide the months of inventory for condo sales and freehold sales, the months of inventory for freehold sales is going to be lower than 1.7. The number is likely somewhere around 1.1 or 1.2. But for condos, that number is, sort of in the 3.5 range, which again is probably tilting towards a buyer's market, between a balance to buyers. We feel that, winter has a tendency of slowing down in terms of overall sales. So this winter is going to be really interesting. I'm really fascinated to see what happens this November and December. November, I know we're only into, the first week or so in November, but just from our sort of perspective on our listings and what activity that we've seen, we've actually seen a jump in showing activity on our condo listings. And we've actually seen a number of our units sell just over the last number of days. So, is that the signal of a sort of the bottom, perhaps, of the condo market? Only time will tell. But interesting that what we've seen, that there's been an increase in appetite and volume. So we'll see how that translates into the next couple months. But I'm fascinated to see what happens this winter, because I think it's going to be an interesting month or two, especially as we change into the new year. So all you got to do is subscribe to this channel. You'll get our regular updates. If you want to get in touch with us with any questions, feel free to message us at the coordinates here on the screen. We're always available. We love getting questions. And also, if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, we've got an awesome newsletter that tells you a little bit more in depth of what's happening in the real estate market, and also some fantastic perspective on what's happening for buyers and sellers. So we hope you subscribe, and hope you enjoyed this month's edition of the real estate market update, and we will see you again